Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast. It's episode 11, Michael. It's another freebie for the broader world.
Yes.
And in this week, there's a bit of an election going on in Ireland. So we thought it might be a good time to touch on some intersection between presidential politics and GAA politics.
Yeah. Some intersection is one way of describing it. All right, much more than intersection. It's more like a flaming inferno at a crossroads is what more we're looking at. Tar barrels have fallen over. There's sheep going up in smoke in Roscommon. It's absolutely insane. 1938 and Douglas Hyde, as you say. We don't normally tie ourselves to topicality because we don't really have to, but I suppose every 7 years a window like this opens up where we get to do an episode on the G and the presidency, and we'd be fools not to, Ciaran.
Yeah, and we've got the perfect guest for this one. So our question is, why did the GAA expel the President of Ireland? And who better to have with us than the author of the GAA versus Douglas Hyde, Cormac Moore?
Yeah, well, you couldn't get a better guy than Cormac for this. Historian with Dublin City Council. He's an author. He's a columnist at the Irish News. He's his own podcast, Ciaran, as well, with Tim McGarry.
You gotta love another podcaster.
Well, we love him. We'll give a shout out to the Irish History Boys, himself and Tim McGarry, the comedian from the Hole in the Wall gang. As you said, GAA versus Douglas Hyde. It goes through a story, really, of pig-headedness, I suppose, from the side of the GAA. It's a story of hypocrisy when it comes to the ban on foreign sports and GAA members playing them. It's a story, actually, of a terribly, terribly nice president in Douglas Hyde getting dragged into a political row, a hugely embarrassing one, around the time that his wife is dying. So it's the GAA going, you can't be here anymore. Why? I guess we'll let Cormac explain.
Let's crack on.
Cormac, thanks so much for joining us. We're talking Douglas Hyde, obviously, today, and his relationship, in inverted commas, with the GAA as the national president. As we know, we'll be going into an election in a couple of days' time where there will be a GAA presence on the ballot paper that we can't vote for. It's kind of reflective of the rather odd relationship that the GAA has, maybe with politics in general, but certainly with the presidential. Because, I mean, apart from Jim Gavin and Douglas Hyde as patron of the GAA, John Wilson is about the only other one, I'd say, is he? That was kind of anyway vaguely kind of, football, hurling related and then going for the presidency.
Yeah, well, obviously Jack Lynch was Taoiseach for many years, but he never went for the Oris. I don't think of anyone. I can't think of anyone that's actually went for a president that's a big GAA figure. Obviously, there was rumours about Jarlath Burns, of course, going this year.
Yeah, I think he had to deny it about 4 times.
Yeah,
I think,
and particularly when Mary Lou McDonald said there's going to be a game changer, and then all of a sudden, because she had a kind of a sporting reference, Many people jumped a lot of hurdles and got to Jarlath Burns, and his odds shortened very rapidly that day, I think, you know.
I happened to be in his company a couple of days after the Sinn Féin announcement, and I was saying to him, "You've said no so many times, it must mean yes. It must mean yes at this stage, you know." But in terms of Douglas Hyde and his role in terms of the GA, in terms of presidency, I suppose the first thing actually might be useful to do is just tell us a bit about him, because I mean, you know, for most of us growing up, Douglas Hyde, okay, first president of Ireland, tick. Any of us who did Leaving Cert history, cultural and literary revival, Gaelic League, tick. But who was this
Anyone
guy?
who ever drove through French Park and went, "What's that on the right?"
Yeah, exactly. Tick.
It actually is worth visiting. It's actually a really good museum, and there's actually a plaque. We'll obviously talk about this through this episode. There's a plaque that the GA put at his gravestone in 1984 to atone for the sin of actually removing him as patron. So Paddy Buggy, this is the centenary celebrations of GA, and Paddy Buggy, the president, put a plaque on his gravesite. You can still see it today at French Park. But Douglas Hyde, he's a very famous figure in the cultural and particularly the language revival movement of the late 19th century. He's from a Protestant background. His father was a Church of Ireland rector in French Park, and he got to know the locals very well, and he learned language from speaking to locals. So it wouldn't have been in his house. And but he was really enraptured with the Irish language and became fluent at a very young age. Went to Trinity, was involved in precursors to the Gaelic League, where he met Michael Cusack. He would have been very friendly with Michael Cusack, who himself was a big Gaeilgeoir. And then he had a very famous speech in 1892 called de-Anglicising Ireland, essentially, to stop aping British kind of fashions, games, and the language. And subsequent to that, the Gaelic League was founded. So it was founded by Douglas Hyde and Owen MacNeill, but he became the first president and most successful president. From when his period of presidency of the Gaelic League from 1893 to 1915, it was probably the most popular body in Ireland, like more popular than GAA. There was a lot of comments on him actually taking a parliamentary roles, getting involved in politics, because he was considered, arguably by the turn of the 20th century, Ireland's most popular public figure. So he would have toured America and other places, basically kind of talking about the Gaelic League, making sure that people were classes were set up. The Gaelic League was a very vibrant organisation, and so many people took to it. But on the flip side, from his perspective, was that many of the people who took to it were revolutionaries, and they started to use it for political ends. So a lot of the people who fought in the Easter Rising would have kind of cut their teeth with kind of national politics through the Gaelic League, but he did not want it to be a political organisation. And when he saw it going that direction, he resigned as president of the Gaelic League in 1915. So he became a senator briefly, but he lost that seat. But he was a lecturer in UCD, a very distinguished lecturer, a very notable figure, and he became the after the Bunnock na HÉireann in 1937, there was a new office of presidency created. De Valera didn't want an election, and he suggested Douglas Hyde. Fine Gael were happy to go with Douglas Hyde as well. So there actually was no election in 1938, and in June 1938, he's inaugurated as the first president of Ireland. And he's a Protestant as well, which it's a symbolic. He's the second. He's the first of two Protestant presidents. So maybe there will be a third after Friday. But there already have been two presidents of the 10 months.
Yeah, because one thing that interested me and about the kind of person he was, which may be relevant to how he deals with the GA crisis that's upcoming for him in 1938. He's had a lovely line about, as you say, seems to have been besotted with the language. I remember he had a lovely line, "I dream in Irish."
Yeah, my book actually. I call the first chapter "My Dream in Irish." I think it's a great line, and
it's wonderful.
Even the way he teaches Irish, like a lot of ministers or Department of Education people should have taken heed. He was saying, live the language, breathe it, talk it. Don't just put it down on a documents. And do you remember we all had to do grammar, like our brains. he lived the language, and it was actually, make sure you're speaking it, loving it, living it, and that's where you'll learn it, and you'll actually make it a big part of your life. Whereas the way we were taught it in school turn most people off the language.
President of the Gaelic League, but he gets he resigns because it gets too politicized. But then the next thing that happens somewhere along, some years later, he's a senator. And if am I right in saying there was a smear campaign by a group called the Catholic Truth Society, which may have essentially been shaped around the fact that he was Protestant and may have had views on divorce that he actually didn't have at all. But my point is that he seems.
I think the issue for him was the Catholic Truth Society was more to do with divorce.
Yes.
Not necessarily him being a Protestant, but obviously that did come in as well.
Yeah, but my point is, he sounds like a chap who, for all the good things that he stood for, he was treated quite poorly. He didn't appear to. And was there a certain softness to him? I suppose I'm wondering, politically and kind of in terms of, dealing with what people might throw at him in that way.
Maybe it's a bit like Owen McNeill, not really cut out for tumble of politics.
An idealist.
An idealist, one of those rare beasts in politics, or involved in the national stage. I think that's fair enough, but he was just very committed to the language movement. That was his kind of raison d'etre, really, and he was a very strong cultural person. So he definitely wasn't a politician, Probably more. He was probably more so of a politician than Jim Gavin, but he still wasn't a politician.
Wouldn't take an awful lot now. God bless him.
No, it didn't. So he lost. Yeah, he did lose his seat. I think he did really poorly. There was a massive election. I think it was the biggest election other than a presidential election for the Senate in 1925. It was 100 years ago. The whole country was the one constituency, and there was something like 70 candidates. So imagine going through that ballot paper, 70 candidates.
Oh my God!
Months for him to count the votes. PR as well. So
PR with 70 candidates. Oh my God!
And he did very poor. Like he was eliminated very quickly. So and he had been a senator for for a bit. He was actually the person that kind of was the first voice on the new radio station in 1926. The 2RN. So he was a national figure. He was obviously a lecturer in UCD. He was very involved in his academic studies. Now, interestingly, he seemed to be pro the bans on the GAA, though.
Really?
At the time, yeah, he was.
There's an irony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he was always talking that the GAA and the Gaelic League should be sister organisations. So and he always complained that while the Gaelic League members support the GAA, and generally only went to Gaelic games, it wasn't the other way around with the language. That he didn't see that much of a presence of the Irish language at GAA fixtures or events, and he riled against that, and he was saying people shouldn't be playing cricket or other foreign sports, So definitely, maybe in his earlier years he would have been pro the bans, and he never commented publicly on one way or the other whether the bans should be removed before he himself was removed as patron.
Yeah, like his relationship with the GAA. There's a lovely line from that you mentioned that piece from 1892 where he said the GAA filled him with more hope for the future of Ireland than anything else put together at that point. He's made patron 10 years later in 1902. He had a relationship with Cusack.
He was the last non Catholic hierarchy figure to be made a patron.
Really?
Yeah. So pretty much it was all like either Primate of Ireland or the Archbishop of Cashel. They're tend to be the only patron since then, I think, as far as I know.
So in terms of GAA, was he a card carrying Rossi? Was he kind of watching a young Jimmy Murray and Knockrockery coming through and marking people's card, or was he big into his GAA?
I think he was, and he was big into. He went to camogie matches, the camogie obviously spawned from the Gaelic League. There's actually a picture. It's not a great picture from one of the newspapers, Irish Independent, of him at an early camogie game. So he was definitely a supporter. So he definitely would have. I don't know to what extent he went to a lot of matches, or how he could talk to you about different teams and their performance and different players and who was good or bad. I honestly don't know to what extent he had that much knowledge, but he definitely took a big interest in it, and he felt it was very important that the Gaelic League was there for the brains of Ireland, and this kind of muscular Christianity that was prevalent at the time. He would said the Gaelic League's there for the brains of Ireland, and the GAA is there for the brawn of Ireland, for the strength of our men and women. So there was this kind of language being used by him quite regularly at the turn of the 20th century. So he was definitely a very worthy patron of the GAA. And we have to remember, when the Gaelic League was founded in 1893, the GAA was on its knees, very, very soon after the Parnell split. And economically as well, a lot of people were emigrating, aside from the Parnell split. So a lot of, how many, was it only 3 counties at a convention in 1892, 1893? Cork,
something
Galway,
like that, yeah.
Dublin, so it was actually Gaelic League who helped the GAA get back on its feet. A lot of GAA clubs were actually founded by Gaelic League members, so it played a really important role in actually helping to revitalise the GAA in the 1890s when it was at a really low ebb.
Mm-hmm. Like the other great character in your book, apart from Hyde himself, is the ban itself, and telling the story of the evolution of the ban and the eventual kind of decline of the ban. Now, it's a massive story all in itself.
Oh yeah, we won't be going through every single change.
No, we can't do that today. Now, no. But I'm gonna
podcast a series by itself, I think.
Oh, geez, stop! I mean,
there we go. There's a spin-off series in the making.
Listen. There'll be an episode alone in trying to explain why foreign dances were apparently outlawed by the GAA. I mean,
hey, the one that hit me was the civil service, as a former member of the civil service GAA club.
That hurt.
Yeah, cut.
Oh yeah, well, that was the oath, So that was the that was a very political one. Obviously, that was Harry Boland and J.J. Walsh who got that. But then they actually, because Ireland was partitioned, they allowed GAA members who were teachers in the civil service of the North to take an oath and not be banned. So they did decide to tweak it a little bit, So,
yeah, which is an interesting irony.
It's interesting that Paddy McNamee was a teacher from the North, so he actually had to take an oath. They all obviously reluctantly took it, and they held off for a while, the teachers in the North, and got paid by the provisional government of the Free State, Michael Collins' provisional government. But they reluctantly had to accept that they had to have an oathty to not just to the Crown, but to the Belfast government as well.
So it's
very
the
hard
irony there.
Pillow to swallow, yeah.
Huge. But I mean, it still stands that the GAA president, who was instrumental in the removal of the first citizen of the Republic from the GAA, took an oath of allegiance himself as a teacher up north.
To the king.
To the king. To the king.
And worse for most Catholics wasn't the king. It was actually the Belfast government. The absolutely vile Belfast government.
Love the free episodes of Over the Bar? Then take your passion further with the Cordia Club membership. For €5 a month, you'll unlock bonus series and member-only shows. Hear the podcast first and ad-free, and get behind-the-scenes access through detailed notes, a newsletter, and Q&As. It's the ultimate GAA history experience, curated by Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara just for you. Upgrade your listening, support the show. Join today at overthebar.club.
But in terms of the ban, so by the time we get to 1938, I mean, the ban, for just very briefly for people, the ban comes in 1902, 1905. It starts to really
but there have been bans.
Bits of bans.
Yeah. Like ban on the RAC. There was bans on actually different bodies, like the Irish amateur athletic bodies, because it was trying to grow, and it felt if they had bans, it would stop people joining both organisations, and it was first felt at that juncture when it was started that if you have bans, you have a better chance of growing and stopping your competitors growing. So there was bans, but then obviously the IRB connection led to an RIC ban. But all those bans go when the GAA is in real dire straits in the 1890s. You had Richard Blake plays a very important role. He's totally anti-bans. I think he's involved in cricket as well, and so it's totally anti-bans. But then by 1902, this kind of pretty much after the 1798 centenary commemorations in 1898, there is this kind of huge uplift of national sentiment, and the Gaelic League is more popular than ever. And there is this, and then there's the Boer War as well. Most nationalists are very much on the Boer side, so you do see the sentiment really increasing, and that's when the ban comes in again. So it's pretty much not an anti-foreign element; it's an anti-British element. So if we look at what sports are banned, it's 4 sports: it's soccer, rugby, cricket, and hockey. It's not golf. it's not American football or baseball, which are actually played in not just a couple of weeks ago, but are played in Croke Park, semi regularly, because they're not bad sports.
And critically, he's the patron of the GAA when the ban comes in.
That very day, this is the new ban comes in, 1902. Now it wasn't. It was kind of tweaked as well over the years. It became binding. It wasn't binding initially, then it became binding. It also included spectators, which obviously is very crucial for Douglas Hyde. So initially it was for players only, but then it went up to spectators as well. So you couldn't even watch a game, or you would be banned from the organisation. Then it started including British soldiers. It started including army dances, and then soccer dances. So it was a whole raft of bans that came in. And then we talked about civil service one. That was, I think, 1918, 1919, just before the War of Independence was starting. And that was obviously a very political one, where civil servants, like teachers, weren't allowed to be in the GA if they took an oath, which they all had to do to be teachers, essentially. So then, but then once once most of Ireland gets independence, there is this move saying, look, we don't need the bans anymore. We're independent. And there's a lot of debates in the 20s, early 1920s, and it's put through Congress. I think it's about 5 or 6 times throughout the 20s, the motion to get rid of the ban, but it always fails. And then there's actually a new one. There's so many of these motions every single year. So a new motion comes in. It can only be debated every 3 years. So that kind of stuff.
It's so often. It's coming up so often that they're going, enough.
It wasn't if there was one that was close in terms of it wasn't to keep the ban was a close run thing. Most years it was it was a huge majority in favour of keeping the ban. So,
and was the 2/3 or the 2/3 majority threshold still there at the time?
I don't think so. No, I think it was just the majority. I don't know if it was 2/3 there at that time. But whether it was or not,
it was never rescinded.
Yeah, way less than half actually wanted to remove the ban, and in fact, it was sometimes only about 10% wanted to remove the ban in the 20s. So, it probably did actually make sense to, not have it every 3 years. It was pointless, and having every year if you didn't get the same result. So that you can understand why they agreed to the 3-year rule.
So by 1938, which is the year where the ban is leaned hard on Douglas Hyde. Already there's a million hypocrisies at play, Cormac.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically, and it's very relevant to Douglas Hyde, is the story of George Ormsby.
Yeah, so 1930. I actually had a chapter in the book called 1938, the year of the ban, because you had George Ormsby, and then you had Tommy Cooney as well, Jimmy Cooney. So George Ormsby was a guard, and he was a part of that great Mayo team from the 30s. And he went to a soccer match as a guard. I think it was in Sligo, soccer match. He was on duty. But he was, the Connacht Provincial Council removed him. I think he was banned for 6 months, whatever it was. But then it was rescinded by the Central Council, saying, actually, no, he was on duty. So, that it was legitimate that he should be at the soccer match. He wasn't going there as a player or a spectator. He was actually he was doing his job. So there was one instant that the GA could have got itself off the hook very easily with Douglas Hyde, but it wasn't mentioned during the whole Hyde saga by anyone in GA for some reason. And then obviously you had the Jimmy Cooney one, that was the most high profile one. So Tipperary had won the All Ireland the previous year in 37, hurling All Ireland, and the first round of championship they played Clare, and Jimmy Cooney, who played, even though he'd seen, I think he was a UCD student, and he went to a soccer match, and he should have been banned. So then Tipperary were kicked out of the All Ireland because they fielded him, and it was a huge controversy. And so I think, and wasn't there a referee called Jimmy Cooney who refereed?
There was.
I
was going to provide the clarification that it's not the same Jimmy Cooney, folks.
It was fair play to him, still refereeing in the late 90s. Yeah, but so it's kind of like someone from maybe the old Jimmy Cooney got revenge on Clare. to a referee called Jimmy Cooney in '98. But yeah, it was a huge controversy. This was happening, and then the whole foreign dance thing was coming up as well, because the GA had a ban on foreign dances, but there's so many GA clubs having foreign dances. And it's just complete mockery. And the GA kind of didn't do anything about it, let it go ahead, because it made a lot of money for different clubs and all of this. So they turned a blind eye to a lot of things. So I'm taking Mick Mackey, who would have been pretty much starting off his career at that stage. Everyone knew he loved rugby. Being a Limerick man, not that uncommon. So they actually made him a vigilante. The GA.
So he could go to the games.
Pretend he was fine, but he'd be watching the game instead. So it was a complete mockery, the whole thing. But so this is the background, I suppose, to what happens in.
Well, the other context here is that the Taoiseach of the time is Dev, who's on record as saying that the two great sporting loves of his life are hurling and rugby.
But he can't do anything about Dev because he's not a member of the GA. He never joined the GA. Yeah. He's in the Gaelic League, so I think there was, and he had an issue because they had a ban on foreign dances as well. But they only banned members who were committee members within the Gaelic League, so you had to be kind of in an executive role or central council role or something like that, or of a branch. But that was different. But he was against that. He was against bans, full stop. De Valera went to this match with. In the soccer match in November 1938 between Poland and Ireland. De Valera accompanied Douglas Hyde and famously Oscar Traynor, who was himself a former professional footballer, goalkeeper with Belfast Celtic amongst other clubs. He was the one, and you can see the picture. The front cover of the book is a great picture, obviously, of Hyde and De Valera, and there's Oscar Traynor clearly explaining to the two boys about what's happening here, what this game of soccer is,
Hyde, I don't think Hyde was a great fan of ground football. I don't think he was mad into the beautiful game.
So let's get into that. So what's the context of the game in 1938? How is he invited?
Yeah.
What's the significance of the game? And then we can deal with the consequences.
So after he became president, so it's a brand new office. So there's not that many.
Yeah, the Vice-Regal Lodge has been vacated.
Yeah. So and the Governor General was the King's representative in Ireland before that. So this is a brand new office. Michael McDunphy is the secretary to the president, so he does a lot of the lifting here. If you look at the National Archives folders on this episode, it's all Michael McDunphy really that's doing all the kind of writing, doing all the advising to the president. And the president says he's president of all the people of Ireland when he becomes president. So he will take invitations from anybody or people who he thinks kind of represents a good portion of a particular viewpoint. So he got loads of invitations, and he turned down most of them. Obviously, how many invitations you'd imagine would a president get at any given time. But he did say if it was a national character, he would go to it. And there is this invitation then from the FAI for him to attend the soccer match. And he decides to go because it is a game of national character. It's enjoyed by a lot of people. He's president of the country. And that's the only decision he can make. He can't say, I'm only going to Gaelic games while I'm president. And he goes to Gaelic games as well, obviously. He goes famous in 38. He goes to the football All-Ireland between Kerry and Galway. It's not a great game. It's a draw. And he decides he's not going to the next game. And his official invitation or excuse was that he had a cold, but he said he didn't. He didn't enjoy the game at all. So he didn't want to go. That was the unofficial reason, the real reason, So,
but wasn't there an issue as well, Cormac, with the way? Well, Michael McDunphy had an issue anyway with the way he was treated. He didn't receive the presidential fanfare that McDunphy had in mind anyway. What happened there?
The car is driven into Croke Park, the president's car, and he's kind of just ushered to his seat. There's no kind of announcement. There's no big rigmarole around the president of Ireland.
There's a lot of protocol when any public figure attends a sporting occasion.
Yeah.
But they're only establishing it now because he's the first president. So
of course.
can we give them a pass for not
we can't.
not
No, I
engaging
don't
in the
think
full
so.
No, we can't.
protocol?
Not at all. No.
I'll tell you why, because the FAI go absolutely all out.
Exactly.
They give him the royal treatment. They treat him like a king almost. He's very, and Mac Dunphy's really impressed the way the FAI have treated him. And the kind of the big kind of show they gave for him, and that
He says that the arrangements made for the reception of the president at Dalymount Park. He said he was received at the gate by the senior officials of the Football Association. A private room was placed at his disposal. His arrival was announced in Irish.
The lads were talking outside while he got a dressing room.
They were, exactly. The Poles, you can go in now, lads. He's done.
He's done.
His arrival was announced in Irish and in English, and a special box.
Where is the private dress? Because Dalymount's not that big.
That's where I'm going from. They must have booted someone from a dressing room.
And a special box was placed at his disposal. I'm guessing that there was a bunch of journalists going, lads, you'd have to stand out in the rain today. In fact, in every way, the utmost respect.
And the cold, it was November as well. So, yeah.
It was November, exactly. Like the timeline here is May 38th, he's president. Obviously, September 38th, the All-Ireland football. And now November. June, sorry.
End of June, so he's only a few months really in the job. So
only a few months. So June,
end of
September.
June. He's been treated like a cold fish at the All Ireland football final, and now he's invited to a soccer international at Daler.
Yeah, and what surprised me, Cormac, actually was this was something I was aware, obviously, of the story, but I wasn't aware that there was huge speculation in the lead up to the game. What's he going to do? What are the GA going to do? I mean, this wasn't something that kind of just exploded after the event. There was a discussion about this in the running.
It wasn't just Hyde; it was De Valera as well. A lot of people like Ireland people who were very, very focused on the kind of cultural kind of heartbeat of Ireland. They were aghast that he would go to a soccer match, and De Valera as well. It means a Taoiseach.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
But and then the days afterwards, there was loads of talk of he has to be got rid of. He's gone against the ban. He should be removed as patron, and De Valera should be got rid of as well. And then they go, hang on a minute, De Valera's not a member, so you can't do anything. So
can't touch him.
You can't touch him. So then it focuses on Hyde. So you have a lot of clubs, county boards talking, having this as a big issue, in their meetings. And it was a Patrick Pearse club in Derry who were the first club to actually put out a motion he should be banned from removed as patron. So then it comes up on December 17th, literally a month after the match, comes up in the Central Council meeting, and the president. There's no debate in the Central Council, or rather, at least it's not in the minutes. There's no debate that's written down of any discussion about this. Just the Pádraig McNamee. The president says that he actually banned himself because he went to the soccer match, so he's gone. And there was no we have to remove him. He actually removed himself by going to the soccer match, and that's pretty much it. There was a guy. There was one guy, Farrell. I can't remember his first name. He was a Roscommon Central Council member, and he defended Hyde.
Thank God the Rossis stuck up for their own.
And in fairness, the Rossis were the only one who stuck up for him. I think Kildare and Mayo actually the following year supported Hyde's decision, but most other counties didn't. So.
Well, I mean, the Rossies stood up for themselves, stood up for their man to a point. I'm curious. So with Pádraig McNamee, the GA president, you've got Pádraig O'Keefe, who's the GA secretary. Now, Pádraig O'Keefe is more connected with
I know
he's a Rossi.
Yeah.
He's a Rossi. Yeah. Was there any sort of political?
Do people consider Pádraig O'Keefe really a Rossi though?
Well, listen.
Pádraig O'Keefe was originally from Ballinagar in Roscommon, which is literally in the next village to French Park.
Listen, there's a bit of blue and gold blood in there somewhere. The question I'm asking, the question I'm wondering is, McNamee and O'Keefe must know what what kind of waves this is going to rise. Now, I appreciate, like, I think at the time, or do they not? Do they not care, Cormac? Is it not? Maybe they think it won't. My impression would be, this is a big move to make. Like,
I think they do. I just can't believe that they'd be that stupid, naive to think that this isn't going to be a massive controversy. But they were so committed to the Irish Ireland ideal. They really, really believed in the Irish Ireland ideal. They subsequently were even promoting kind of far right political groups.
I want to get onto that in a minute. Yeah.
But actually, just can we step back for a sec? Who were they playing in the soccer international?
Oh, Poland. It was a friendly game. Like, it wasn't a significant game. Now, to be fair,
this wasn't a World Cup qualifier or anything.
No, but like the World Cup was a new enough competition. It was 1930. They didn't even enter a team in 1930. They would have been in the World Cup if they entered the team. I think they missed out to Norway in 34. I think it was just one home and away game. Or was it Spain? I think Spain did it. That was more. Sorry, that was the 60s. But
that was later.
38. Yeah, 38 they didn't. The 38 campaign for the World Cup 38. So it was a new enough body. The biggest kind of money were friendlies at that stage. They couldn't get a home fixtures against England, Scotland or Wales, and they really wanted those. But we're not going to talk about the split and all of that.
So this is the beginning of all the interminable number of friendly internationals Ireland have with Poland.
Yeah, I think they had one or two before that. I don't think this is the first international against Poland. But it's the highest attendance game at Dalymount Park up to that point. But they seem to be breaking records every year. So, like, it was getting huge crowds, like well into the 30,000s, for these friendly fixtures. So it was it was well attended. It was well publicised. There were big games for a relatively new organisation that wasn't in many competitions and didn't get those marquee fixtures of particularly England. They had to go to a lot of the teams on the continent to get any kind of international fixture. So yeah, it was a friendly, but still it was important for a relatively new body.
I was just going to say there are 34,000 people at it, and yeah, it's enormous. And I have to say, I mean, I just go back to the human side of this, because I mean, the photograph that you mentioned that's on the front of your book, and we share it with our members, and we'll have links obviously to access Cormac's book as well. Excuse me, but the picture is really. It's very striking always to me. We mentioned already, you got Dev, and you've got Douglas Hyde in the middle, this kind of rather small, walrus, mustachioed, slightly bewildered looking
the
old
eyes
man.
He looks completely out of place there, doesn't he?
He looks out of it. Yeah, and you've got Oscar Traynor, and you're looking at this and you're going, what the hell was the GAA doing? I mean, do we know the impact on Hyde of the GAA expelling him? How did he feel about it in the years after? Did he ever talk about it? Was there ever anything like that?
Never. He never mentioned it. Never mentioned it once. And there was no public statement from the president's office. But like there was enough public statements from De Valera, and De Valera certainly made his opinion known very, very soon about it.
He was angry.
Very angry. And he like, once President or Hyde finishes up his term, he only serves one term in 45. De Valera hauls the GAA into the government buildings and say, "You will never do this to another president again." And they agree. They have a U-turn, and they say Sean T. O'Kelly can go to GAA matches as well as to foreign games. That's his job as president. So, and there was a very strained relationship between the Fianna Fáil government and the GAA after the whole Douglas Hyde incident. And Oscar Traynor was at the centre of all of those. So, but going back to your point, let's go back to why did the GAA make that decision? I do. Of course, I think they knew that this was going to be very controversial. They knew they were going to get a lot of heat over it, but they still felt that Ireland was moving away from its Irish Ireland ideals. It was becoming more British. And 38 was obviously when Ireland signed the Anglo-Irish trade agreement with Chamberlain. There was the feeling that there was kind of all this real Irish Ireland kind of ideas that De Valera would have espoused were kind of drifting as well. And they needed to save Ireland. There is this kind of element, from becoming more and more British, and a sacrosanct part of that was that ban. And many people believed that the GAA would fold as an organisation if they got rid of the ban. So you're kind of making an example with the president of Ireland here by showing that the ban is really sacrosanct, it's really important. No one is above it, and he has to be removed.
I think. So, I mean, Park McNamee, just for what it's worth, makes it I won't say a strong defense. He makes it a defense of the decision.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try and read it in a truculent Ulster accent, but it just it's not great. Anyway, he says the critics tell of a wonderful thing called internationalism. The people who talk of internationalism really mean Anglicism. They describe English games as international. They pander deliberately or unwittingly to England's superiority complex. They talk of bans. Even English critics admit the superiority of hurling as a field game. But I wonder how many English colleges have introduced it as part of their athletic curriculum. On one point, I agree with our critics, and that is when they say that we are intolerant. My only complaint is that we are not half intolerant enough. We and all Irishmen who value the inheritance of the Gael, always been confused what a Gael is, I have to say, must be intolerant of everything foreign in this country. We can never rest until the last vestige of foreign dominion is gone beyond recall. I dream of the day when a Gaelic front will come into existence. It's gone, frankly, sounds like he's gone mad at this stage. A front consisting of a union of organisations, each looking after its own particular part of the Gaelic revival, and on and on and on and on.
But the issue of intolerance, we have to think about the broader culture here at the time. So we've got fascism on the rise across the continent, and there's a domestic fascism issue as well. And then this happens.
Yeah, and moving on a couple of years, the GAA actually published this book or booklet called National Action. And it's essentially promoting the kind of a Salazar-type Ireland, a corporatist Catholic country. Irish is the official language. And GAA published it, and it's really anti-government. It's anti-democracy. It's anti-the-state.
It's insane. It's insane. I mean, for an organisation that has always preached apoliticism, and people have made, or there has been attempts over the years to strengthen the link, we'll say, between the Rising and the GAA, or elements of the War of Independence in the GAA that don't really match up. But here they are, jumping into a ridiculous political situation, putting themselves into the middle of a thing. To me, between 1938 and 42, it seems to me, Cormac, like the GAA has gone a bit mad.
Yeah, there is definitely an element of that because, and they have a lot of rows with the government as well because Oscar Traynor, he was, when he went to a soccer match, he was Minister for Posts and Telegraphs, but during the war, he becomes Minister for Defence. And one of his first decisions is to remove the ban on army members. Well, if you remember the Irish Army, the games that were favoured were the GAA. So you could play other games, but you weren't going to get any help, financial help. And if you got injured, you weren't going to get time off work, so playing those games, or you wouldn't get any kit or anything like that. Whereas the GAA, if you were injured, you got time off, you got all the kit was paid for. He removed that. And it was, the GAA were absolutely disgusted with rage. It was a big issue in the 1943 annual Congress. They said they want to make it an issue in the general election. That when I fight over this, and this is on the back of this national action thing, and a political party was formed as well, which was espousing kind of the national action booklet ideals. That was called Altira na Shiraga, the architects of the resurrection.
Jesus,
nut job.
Even when you say it, you're just going,
whoa!
Oh, no, it's full Nazis. It's full Nazis. Like Jared Cunningham's guy that ran it, and he, I think it was a great slogan. Actually, was a what was it? Six divisions, 6 counties, 6 minutes. This kind of thing. We will get back to 6 counties in 6 minutes with 6 divisions, basically. This kind of. So it was very, very Irish, very anti-foreigner, very Nazi fascism. Running right through it. J.J. Walsh, obviously a key figure in the GAA. He was a supporter of it. Ernest Bly, I think, was a supporter of it as well. And very famously, Oliver J. Flanagan was a supporter of it. Oliver J. Flanagan actually, he was the TD who was actually giving them letters, letter envelopes, all of this kind of the stationery that they wouldn't have themselves. But they did not do well electorally. Like you're talking 1-2%. But the GAA senior figures seem to have been drawn to this kind of politics.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bars Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
But I've always did. I hate when I hear sports people, no matter what sport it is, or there's no relation in sports and politics. They're complete.
Of course there is.
Always have been, always will be, 100% linked. 100% linked.
I think the only defence we can make, and shoot me down here, Cormac, is that the likes of O'Keefe and McNamee, they're children of the 1880s, 1890s. They've grown up with a certain revolutionary zeal and ideal in their head, and it's that protection of Ireland. It's that protection of I suppose Irish culture, Irish things, Irish identity. So maybe that's feeding into their thinking here to an extreme degree. To an extreme degree, though.
Yeah, as an historian, it's always context is really important. Like you can't put our opinions today on what people did, 80, 90 years ago. Absolutely. And look, they did great. Like both men were huge servants to the GAA and to Ireland. So like O'Keefe is called the architect of the GAA because look how many grounds there are today because of his work. Essentially, how many GAA grounds are built when he was Secretary General? Like most of them would have been built during his tenure. A hugely significant figure. Same with McNamee. McNamee was the longest serving president after James Nolan. So he was there. Maybe it was because of the war years as well, but I think he served for 4 years or even more. So it was obviously it's 3 years now, and I think he's the only the last president to serve more than 3 years. Very significant. I think you've won a couple, haven't you, Mick, of the McNamee Awards for
one or two.
One or two. So he's a very significant figure. He did great work for the GAA, but yet they just had this real kind of blinkered view of what an Irish Ireland was and what it wasn't or what it shouldn't be, and it was a very anti-British sentiment. And they felt that Ireland was drifting back towards kind of and didn't really remove itself from British customs and British ways of living. And they were vehemently against it, but they definitely went extreme, and they definitely were not reading the room anyway. Maybe they were within the GAA at the time, but they definitely were not reading the room nationally. And it was like getting rid of Hyde as patron, backing this booklet. They were not popular moves. Yeah.
No, and I mean, it has, as you say, reading the room in terms of the GAA. I mean, the 1939 Congress, I think, supported the decision to expel him.
Yeah,
it's 120 votes to 11. But to be fair to Hyde, he never went to another All-Ireland final, but he paid £1 into the Roscommon Footballers Training Fund for 39 and 40. And I mean, when you think of it, he missed their 2 in a row in 43 and 40.
I was just about to say that
he could have been. He could have been there
the saddest part here.
It's really there's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, the whole Roscommon thing. Like, imagine him being president, Roscommon winning 2 All-Irelands. Like, it would have been such a great, another kind of bow to that string, of celebrating those 2 All-Irelands, But
absolutely. Yeah. But like as you mentioned,
39 one, the 39 one, the hurling on between Cork and the Kilkenny, the Thunder and Lightning final, the same day that the Second World War was declared. So that was amazing. Obviously, probably not a great one to go to from a weather point of view,
I'd say he would have been pining for a special box that day to make sure I'm undercover.
But obviously his wife dies in December 31st, 38, but he suffers a stroke as well in 40. So he's actually limited as well in his movement. So he's in a wheelchair for most of the rest of his life. So he's actually limited in where he can go. Now, he did go to a rugby match after, but he was more limited in where he could and couldn't go from after he suffered a stroke in 1940.
You mentioned it already. So by 45, he doesn't serve a second term. Sean T. O'Kelly succeeds him. The GAA are summoned to government buildings. To basically get bollocked by Dev to go, you can't treat Sean T. O'Kelly the same way you treated Hyde. The president represents everybody. And O'Kelly attends both All-Ireland finals in 45. And there's a bit of fanfare. There's a little bit more of all that. So in the years after that, Cormac, like, have the GAA, would you say, have they kind of, I suppose, posthumously built bridges back to Hyde? Has there kind of been an acceptance that what went on was a bit extreme?
I think so. I think the first instance of that was 1945 when De Valera hauls him in. Like, they don't disagree; they agree with him immediately. Like, there's no back and forth. Like, there's no defense of their actions in 38. It was literally, no problem. O'Kelly, yeah.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Though is that
There
not
was-
extraordinary? Given they dug their heels in so hard
And it wasn't
for
that
so
long
many
ago.
years.
7 years, and but by then it was no problem. Makes sense to us. What? What was it all about? Yeah. So then obviously O'Kelly goes to whatever sporting events he's deemed appropriate, and there's no problem GA in that. Now it becomes an issue. Like the ban remains until 71, as we know, and it is used as a kind of a stick to beat the GA with. Like this is the worst incident or worst example of what have you've misused the ban. You got rid of this president, this great man, this hero of Irish
Could he
language.
not have just, gone with the age-old solution of attending under a different name?
He could have, but he probably wouldn't have got away with it,
With that big mustache, not a hope.
Big mustache, yeah.
I mean, he'd have had to. I mean, most people put a mustache on to disguise themselves. I know he would have had to shave it off. It would have been a hell of a lot of work.
Of your podcast name, Over the Bar, after that great book by Brendan. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but Brendan O'Hare.
Brendan O'Hare, yeah.
Brendan O'Hare. He's a great story about wearing big long coats and having an Irish name and an English name, depending on what code he was playing or watching. So it was a lot of people were able to do that, but I think Hyde probably wasn't in that position to get away with.
I'm just disappointed
Just
disappointed there was no appeals process. I'd have loved the hearing process to appeal his expulsion.
It did show us the contradictions at play at the time. There was actually a guy who was banned for attending or playing a foreign game, and he wanted his hearing to be in Irish, but there was no one who could speak Irish at his hearing, so it had to be abandoned. So like even though the GAA pretended it was this Irish Ireland body, all of the meetings were held pretty much in English. Most of the match programs were in English. The announcements were generally in English. So it itself should have looked in the mirror at and as we mentioned, with people like Mick Mackey, there were loads of examples where they didn't adhere to their own rules on the ban. When they could have. And the obvious one we mentioned at the start, George Ormsby, there was a get out of jail clause. Hyde had
fulfilling national service.
Yeah, but it would have been a bigger controversy nationally if Douglas Hyde decided when he was president, I'm only going to Gaelic games. That would have been an international incident. And this actually was an international incident as well, but it would have been a huge international incident if Hyde, was.
That's the kind of thing that, for such a fledgling role as the presidency,
yeah.
If he had made that decision, I'd imagine it could have sunk the whole idea of a presidency straight away. I will go to Gaelic games, but I will not go to a rugby match or a soccer match or a hockey game. That could have sunk the whole thing. So 45, they kind of get themselves in order, and the president kind of resumes or assumes a more prominent role at big games. 71, you make the ban goes in 71, but of course Dr. Hyde Park is named after him in 71 as well. Yeah. I presume that's not coincidental.
Well, I don't know, but is that a Roscommon decision? Who names it? I presume it's the Roscommon County Board names.
It would have been.
Yeah, so and they were always pro Hyde, so that's not surprising at all. Now I don't know is it a coincidence or not with the ban. I just think who better to name a Roscommon GAA pitch after as well. Though, like Hyde is a very revered figure. First president of Ireland. The ban story had moved on, and pretty much when people start getting TVs in their houses, how can you stop? How can you be a vigilante there of what people are watching at their homes? So,
I love that. I love that idea. That match of the day basically brings down the ban.
The World Cup more than anything. The 66
World Cup
was really popular in Ireland. Loads of people were watching the World Cup. They kind of knew their goose was cooked to those people who wanted to keep the ban. And and then it was kind of like it was going that way anyway. And in 71, it was and up in Queens, that's where the annual Congress was that year. And there was resistance. There was people who opposed it. But even I'm sure you've heard stories about people going to schools afterwards that they were kicked off the GA team if they were playing soccer, so you watch the soccer, and
there would have been there would have been places that just wouldn't have played soccer, and it would have been sort of a passive aggressive thing. It wasn't so much that we're banning it, but we're not doing it. So
not even that. I've heard of lads kicked out of GA teams because they were seen playing soccer. Subsequent to certainly in school teams anyway. And I even when I was going to school, in secondary school in the late 80s, early 90s, and I didn't see any of that myself, but you heard stories about lads that kicked off the GAA teams because they're playing soccer as well.
I thought this was going somewhere very personal for a moment, Cormac. I thought we were about to.
I wasn't good enough to get in soccer teams, right?
There's something right and proper about the fact that the GAA tried to bundle Douglas Hyde out of their history almost by expelling him from the association and so on. But in the totality of time, he actually ends up becoming one of the most recognisable names or expressions. I don't know how you'd call it, because like if you go to a game in Roscommon, you're going to the Hyde.
Yeah.
You know, you don't say the same necessarily about Castlebar or Salt Hill or you know, lots of other iconic venues, not just in Connacht, but all over. But the Hyde is the Hyde.
You go to O'Queeve though as well. Well, Super Value O'Queeve.
Well, you go to the park.
Go to the park.
You go to the park and you go to Killarney. I mean, the Hyde is one of those really, really recognisable places, and you know, it only takes a split second to pause and think, well, who's Hyde? It's Douglas Hyde. So I think that's a kind of a it's a nice squaring of the circle at the end of it all, that he has actually, you know, assumed a place maybe more in popular GAA lore rather than political GAA lore. Cormac, thanks so much for taking the time to walk us through this story. It was epic. I mean, we thought that the presence of a GAA figure on the ballot that we can't vote for in a couple of days could have been the most sensational thing that could possibly happen between the GAA and a presidential election or the presidency as a whole. But here we go. Douglas Hyde trumps them all, I think.
I think he does. But thanks very much, Mick, as always, and lovely meeting you, Ciaran.
Thanks, Cormac. Really appreciate it. Wasn't expecting as many twists and turns in that one, but certainly well worth delving into for the week that's in it. And for Corge members this week, it's a strange intersection as well. Make it what was the first concert in Croke Park? So if you've been down Jones's Road for some purpose other than hurling or football, you may be interested in that one. But you do have to be a Corge member to get it.
I can tell you that it's for sure, it's not. The artists at the first gig were not Archbishop John Charles McQuaid and the McQuaidettes. Definitely not. Definitely not. We're up a bit closer to now, but still actually a bit far away from now as well. So, you know, answers on a carrier pigeon if you've got any guesses before you tune in. And please do like and share and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Even just tell one other person that you think might enjoy these sort of yarns. They're right here for you. We keep doing them. They're going to keep banging them out for as long as you listen to them.
And so that's it for this week from us. If you are a Corge member, do enjoy your exclusive this week. And we'll be back next Wednesday for everybody else.